You are listening to the New Book of Daniel podcast. Hello and welcome to the New Book of Daniel podcast. My name is Daniel Bolbinski. I'll be your host on this adventure. I got a phone call on Friday from Dr. Joshua Dopko. If you've subscribed to the show or you're a longtime listener, you know he's become a regular guest. The good doctor had some insights that he wanted to share about the potential pros and cons of President Trump contracting COVID. And so for the next, 19 minutes or so, I'd like you to listen into this conversation because he has some interesting points. Let's jump right into this conversation. Well, we're once again visiting with Dr. Joshua Dopko. Dr. Dopko, thank you again for joining our show.
My pleasure.
So we have before us here a United States president, commonly referred to as the most powerful man in the world, who has just come down with the dreaded Rona. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, as soon as I heard this, of course my mind went racing and I thought of all kinds of things, most of them rational based, and then your conspiracy theories along with those. And we might delve into those later on. But the first thing that hit me was the fact that you have the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who is, I think it can be argued, the most protected individual on the face of the planet, probably the most protected individual in history. Whenever anybody comes in contact with him, they have to first get a COVID test. And that COVID test has to be negative before they can even have an audience with our president. Mm-hmm. And that's daily. Daily, every person is getting tested for coronavirus. I'm sure that once you get in to see the president, that you're still keeping a social distance, even though you've had a test for COVID that was negative. Who knows? I've seen pictures where many of the people that are surrounding the president are also wearing masks while they are there. So you have these huge tiers of security where people are screened at the door of the White House or wherever he is for the temperature and all that. They're then given a COVID test. Even after the COVID test is negative, then they still have to social distance, wear a mask, and all the stuff that we're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And even with that, Trump is now positive for COVID-19. With every precaution that you could possibly have, he gets COVID. So I started thinking about our general population and what we are doing as a nation here. I've had to go to work every day this entire COVID outbreak. My daughter is a health inspector and she has been going to work. My son-in-law has been working at a grocery store. And we do not have the luxury of making sure that every single human being we come in contact with tests negative for COVID prior to having contact with them.
So Trump has COVID. And yes. According to reports, he is running a low-grade fever. And he has now been taken to Walter Reed Hospital. Does that concern you that he's being taken to Walter Reed, or do you think they're making appropriate moves there?
Well, I think as far as the virus itself, it doesn't necessarily concern me that they're taking him. I mean, this, like they said, they could be doing this out of the overpreponderance of caution, that they're taking him there where he can be monitored closely. If we want to jump into the politics of how I see this playing out with Trump having coronavirus, I think that this could work positively for Trump, or it could work negatively for Trump.
What do you mean?
If, like, for instance, on the positive side, if Trump does not get ill with coronavirus, if he stays asymptomatic or develops minor symptoms, if he's able to stay in contact with the American people, and the American people are able to see that he's healthy, happy, that he's of good spirits, that he's the old Donald Trump that we all know and love or hate, whichever the case may be, then I think it could play in his favor. And the reason it would play in his favor is because he would be able to accent, yes, we've had 7 million positive cases of coronavirus. How many of those people who have had coronavirus are like me, who have had minor symptoms, have had no.
I've lost your audio. Okay, so we lost the audio here. For if you're watching and you saw the hiccup, we lost the audio. The good doctor is on call and his phone rang. He's talking to me on his cell phone. So where were we? We were talking about Trump getting the virus and the positive thing that it might have, the positive impact that might have on his politics.
Correct. And
on his political situation, I should say.
Exactly. And that is if Trump he has the virus, if he has mild symptoms or is asymptomatic and he does well with it, he will be able to point out, yes, people die. 204,000 people so far have died of it out of a country of 330 million. But the vast majority of people do just fine. And I have 2 significant risk factors and I did fine with it. And I think that would actually help his political stance on COVID. Also, I think that what would help is, he's arguing that we need to get on with our lives. We need to go on get the economy rolling. We need to go back to life as normal. Well, people have to work. Farmers have to go and farm. Truckers have to deliver goods. Physicians, nurses, multitudes of people have to go to work to keep society functioning. We have no choice but to go home. And so on one side, you have a leader who is willing to get out in the trenches. He's willing to go to rallies. He's willing to show up to work every single day as he is asking me to do. So we have a leader who is doing what he is asking of us. Where on the other hand, you have somebody who is sequestered in a safe location, and he's saying he wants everybody to stay safe. However, a large percentage of the population has no choice but to go to work. We can't stay in a basement.
So you're saying that if Trump is, one way that this can help him politically is if he stays active, if he stays healthy, and people see him being active and being, doing presidential things still, then it can come out and be a political plus for him.
It could be a political plus for him, and it could also be a plus for people who are opposed to the lockdowns, because it would be the most visible example of okay, here's somebody who has 2 large risk factors for COVID, yet he did just great. So maybe this fear is being oversold to us, and that could really change the whole narrative on COVID-19.
Yeah, I just 2 hours ago spoke with a friend of mine. He's 70 plus years old. His wife is in her late 60s. They both ended up with COVID, and they both said there was like a couple of days. It said it was like a flu. They had mild headache, mild fever, and they're both doing fine now. And they're in that range, the danger range, and they did fine. So and just for sake of time here, let's talk briefly about what's the potential downside here for Trump.
Well, here I think could be devastating, and this is why my heart kind of sunk when I heard that he was going to Walter Reed in Bethesda, is if Trump gets sick, if he gets very sick, especially if he can't meet his duties, if he can't stay in the public light, what that is going to do is that is going to give the left plenty of ammunition to point out that Trump was cavalier about this. Trump didn't even recognize the danger he was in, let alone the danger that you as the average American are in. not only that, he has jeopardized the office of the presidency by him getting himself sick while he's in office with a virus he could have prevented if he just did what Joe Biden did. Then he has jeopardized the United States. He has jeopardized our security. He has put us in a position of weakness where China or Russia could take advantage of this. He has jeopardized the office of the presidency. And if that happens, I predict that Trump would have one of the most overwhelming defeats that we will have seen in modern history.
Interesting. Interesting. Would you agree with me that the virus is going to virus?
It is. It is. It's here. There's no way to stop it at this point. I think in March or April, it could have been stopped if we did very, very draconian measures that would have violated every single civil right that we have as Americans. And if we would have been willing to give away every single liberty that we have for an indeterminate amount of time, maybe we could have stopped the virus. Maybe.
So what's the balance? I got to tell you, I wasn't willing to pay that price.
Right. And now, where we're sitting now, when I first started hearing about this virus and hearing about, that it was exceedingly contagious, I'm thinking maybe 50% of the people get it minimum and 10% of people who get it die. You're talking, and just in the United States, you're talking tens of millions of deaths. And under that circumstance, you have to be a little more drastic. But now where we're sitting now, we see that virus is not that. It is not this highly contagious, highly fatal virus that we think. But it is an odd virus. Here you have Trump, who gets his entire cohort tested every single day, and he gets it. Mm-hmm. I had coronavirus a couple months ago now, and I was around my wife, I was around all three of my children, and I was around my grandchildren, I was around my cousin, and none of those people got sick. Either one of two things happened. They got coronavirus and were completely asymptomatic, or they did not get it. I don't know which is the case.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an odd situation where sometimes it seems like you get it for no apparent reason, and then other people who should have got it just don't.
So maybe I should have you on another time. We can just not talk medical, and we can just talk what a scamdemic this was, and maybe what the overarching purpose of all the overreaction really was, if you really want to chase some rabbits.
That would be great.
All right. I want to say thank you for coming on and talking Trump and COVID. Dr. Joshua Dopko, emergency room physician, thank you so much for your input. And we do pray for the president, and we do pray for all of our elected leaders, asking that they would all be well, because we want this to be a fair system, not an unfair situation. So
correct. Well,
all right.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Bless you too, sir. Catch you later. All right. So we had that conversation on Friday night. I did not get a chance to get around to editing that until Saturday night. And in that time, President Trump released a video from Walter Reed. And I got to tell you, the president looked pretty good. Turns out that Walter Reed has the facility set up for a president, any president. That's kind of like their medical room in waiting for any president. And he can work there. And they told President Trump that if he stayed at the White House, well, he was going to have to quarantine in the personal quarters, not to be allowed into the Oval Office. Well, if you know Trump, he's a driver personality. He's not going to sit around in his bedroom for 10 days. So he chose to go to Walter Reed, and it looks like they got a pretty nice setup where he can get some work done there, which is his profile. Anyways, it looks like Trump is doing really well, and that means, well, if everything plays out, then the positive predictions that Dr. Dopko had are likely to come true. So if you'd like to leave a comment down below, I would encourage you to do that. You can also subscribe to this show. And of course, if you want to talk with me directly, send me an email. Just use newbookofdaniel@outlook.com. You can also find me on Twitter, Parler, and MeWe as @NewBookOfDaniel. And you can find me on Facebook, simply facebook.com/NewBookOfDaniel. And if you want to read my writings on politics and the issues of the day, you can do that by going to uncoverdc.com and also Red State. This is Daniel Bobinski. You've been listening to the New Book of Daniel, and I very much appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Until then, be blessed.